Good morning, everybody. It was on this date in 1789, April 28, that Fletcher Christian and others forced William Bligh and a few others off the ship in the middle of the South Pacific near Tahiti in an event which we call today the Mutiny on the Bounty. This map shows the third voyage of Captain Cook, who was killed in Hawaii, which is why the color changes from red to blue. But notice the red line at the top is at Alaska. So he went up to Alaska on his third voyage and came to what is now Anchorage. And note, everybody, where it says Cook Inlet on the left. So Captain Cook was here. He sent his navigator up that body of water called the Turn Again Arm. And it's called the Turn Again Arm because the navigator realized that it was going to end, so the ship had to turn around. And that navigator was William Bligh, who ended up being the captain on the Bounty. So breadfruit, pictured here, grows all through the Pacific. And the British wondered if breadfruit could grow in the Caribbean, where they had colonies. So the mission of the Bounty was to take breadfruit from Tahiti to the Caribbean. So this map shows the route of the Bounty. It was going to go around South America, but ended up going the other way because of the weather. So it went along Africa, along Australia, and finally came to Tahiti in the South Pacific, where Cook had been a couple years before. So the Brits knew about Tahiti. And I think what strikes us as we look at the map of where Tahiti is the long distances these sailors traveled back in the 1700s. They were on ships for years covering this broad expanse of water, and that's just amazing, isn't it? So here's Tahiti around 1800. Europeans saw this as a real idyllic place because of the weather and the laid-back customs. So the Bounty was here for 5 months, picking up breadfruit and getting very used to a relaxed lifestyle. So one of the reasons the mutiny happened, this is the picture of the mutiny, is that the sailors didn't want to leave Tahiti. So what the mutineers did is they put William Bligh on an open boat with 18 others, and all they gave him to navigate was a sextant and a watch. So Fletcher Christian and the other mutineers stayed on the Bounty, and they sent William Bligh on his way. But the mutineers themselves didn't agree on what to do. Some of them wanted to go back to Tahiti and just live there, and some did. But Fletcher Christian took the Bounty and went elsewhere with some other mutineers, and they ended up here on Pitcairn Island. So there was Fletcher Christian, some English people, also some Tahitian men and Tahitian women, and the Tahitians ended up murdering Fletcher Christian and some of the other mutineers. Meanwhile, William Bligh followed this route in an open boat on the open ocean, covered 4,000 miles, and ended up in today's Indonesia, made it back to England. Not everybody in that open boat lived. Some died of disease or starvation, but Bligh made it back to England with a few others, told their story, and the Royal Navy sent a warship down to Tahiti and arrested whatever mutineers they could find, took them back to Britain for trial, and some were hanged from the yardarm of a ship. Others were punished in other ways. Now, meanwhile, back at Pitcairn Island, the British who lived had families, and this picture is from the mid-1800s of descendants of those British survivors on Pitcairn Island. And as late as the 1990s, there were still direct descendants of the mutineers, and this fellow was one of them. So there was a little colony of people living on Pitcairn Island. The mutineers had taken the Bounty apart and used the wood and other things. But over years, parts of the Bounty have showed up, and you can see parts of it in a museum down there. Hollywood has loved this story. This is the 1980s version with Mel Gibson as Fletcher Christian and Anthony Hopkins as William Bligh. But there have been other versions of this story too. So the Pacific Ocean, full of drama, big distances, and the mutiny on the Bounty perhaps one of the most famous.